Hi guys, so today I'm going to just go through some science fiction and fantasy tropes and tier rank them. I just have the basic SABCD list. I don't really know what that all means, but let's dive in. And I'll give some examples of each trope as we go along as well. Grimdark. I have actually not read a lot of Grimdark books. I am going to be reading the First Law trilogy sometime this year, hopefully, as well as a couple of other Grimdark books, but I haven't read enough to actually give an opinion on Grimdark, I don't think. So I'm just going to put it down here because I can't give an opinion on it because I have not read enough. Low fantasy. So low fantasy just takes place in our world. Urban fantasy is a subset of low fantasy. Portal fantasy could be considered low fantasy. Basically, magic that takes place in our world, which can be done correctly, can be done well. I prefer high fantasy. Which, do I have high fantasy on here? Okay, I'm not seeing it. Maybe I already did it. Okay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. I prefer high fantasy, but there have been a lot of low fantasy books that I've loved, such as An Unkindness of Magicians. Okay, sci fantasy. I really like sci fantasy as well. Okay, so science fiction, hard fantasy, and sci fantasy, this is how I like to explain this. If you take Stargate, Star Trek, and Star Wars, obviously there are some episodes of each that are going to contradict what I'm about to say. However, as a whole, Star Wars is basically a fantasy that is disguised as a science fiction. The Force is basically a low magic system. And there's just people or creatures that do not exist in our world that are allies or antagonists in that world. So in that instance, Star Wars would be considered a sci fantasy because although there are some elements of science fiction in it, there's not a lot. They don't ever talk about the science behind what they're doing, such as Stargate and Star Trek do. Star Trek, some of the series and episodes are more geared towards hard science fiction. When I say hard science fiction, I'm talking about The Martian, where it is fictionalized or fantastical in a little bit. Creative liberties have been taken. However, the science behind all of it is explained. It uses real-world science. Interstellar is another one where it's the impossible is explained using hard science facts. They usually have consulted with chemics and physicists and different scientists, or usually a lot of times the authors themselves are scientists. Some Star Trek episodes are very hard science fiction. However, I think on a whole, I think Stargate is more science fiction. I think Star Trek does have a lot more of the fantastical elements in it, such as the warp drive. Now, I have not watched a ton of Star Trek, but that has been my experience. If you're kind of looking at what is the difference between sci fantasy, hard science, they all kind of murk in the gray in sci fantasy. So take that as you will. Some people might want to correct me, and please feel free to. In my experience, that has been how I've been able to describe the difference between all of these. Your mileage may vary. You might have other series that you would like to showcase the difference between them. Those are just the ones that I have. Okay, cozy fantasy. I have not read a lot of this either, so I'm going to have to put it down here just because I have not read a lot of it. But that is low stakes, they're usually shorter books, and it's just a feel-good time with wizards or orcs or goblins or other fantasy creatures, just chilling and having a good time. Legends and Lattes is like this. Okay, enemies to lovers is obviously the best when done correctly. I have to clarify that because some enemies to lovers is toxic, and I'm not about that toxic life. But even better than enemies to lovers is friends to lovers. Although sometimes that is, again, I don't like that either. I'm mostly thinking right now of Harry and Ginny and Ron and Hermione from Harry Potter. If you want good friends to lovers, I suggest On the Fence by Casey Rest. If you want enemies to lovers, Divine Rivals is probably my pick for that. Okay, tragic backstory, I think, is commonly not done the right way. I see a lot of tragic backstories where either it's not really tragic enough, or it's kind of too tragic and they should have had lots of therapy to, like, figure out what was wrong, to, like, fix themselves. But, it's okay, I digress, it's fine. When done correctly, it's one of the best things to happen. Such as Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. But let's continue. The wise old mentor, such as like Iroh and Gandalf, which is like the wise old person that guides you on your journey. Moraine is also an example of this from Wheel of Time. I like them. They're better than animal companions. Okay, I'll do wise old mentor. The only reason why I don't really like them a lot of times is that a lot of books always have them die to, like, propel the main character forward. And maybe I'm just too tired of that trope. Maybe that's all that it is. Let's continue. Forbidden magic. So this could be a couple different things. The way that I chose to do it, because if I do another list like this, I'll do the other way. But there's two different ways you could look at forbidden magic. There's one way where it's all magic is forbidden and, like, you can't learn how to use it. But I'm going to go with the other way, which is within the magic, there are forbidden rules, such as the unforgivable curses in Harry Potter, bloodbending in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and, like, dark magic, like, that's actually in a lot of different series. But the one that I'm thinking of right now is Dresden. I like forbidden magic because usually, like, the enemies... Put that down. Normally, the enemy is the one that's using the forbidden magic, and the protagonist has to find a way to defeat them without sacrificing their morals, which adds to that moral dilemma and that political intrigue that I love. So, I'm always gonna love me some forbidden magic. The reluctant hero. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan simply for the fact that because I consume so much media, I know the reluctant hero is going to eventually become the hero, so why have all the melodrama and just go out fighting from the get-go? But that's just me consuming way too much media. The Lost Heir, such as the Throne of Glass series. I haven't read enough. From the top of my memory, all I can think of is the Throne of Glass. I have not read enough of that to accurately give an opinion on it. So, yeah, that's going to be, D is just the, I don't know enough about it. The anti-hero, like Loki and Jack Sparrow, which they're not heroes. But they're also not villains. And are they going to save the day? Or are they going to ruin it? And they're just here for themselves. I love them so much. Because you never know what they're going to do. And it adds to that political intrigue that I love. Okay, and then the Chosen One. I like the Chosen One when... And these are not in any order within the things, but... I like the Chosen One when it's about subverting the expectations of the Chosen One. But I don't like The Chosen One usually because it's overdone. It's a plot device to instance I can think of the most that I feel like subverting the Chosen One trope would have made the series a lot better would be Percy Jackson. If you have not watched Morphina Pierre's video about her headcanon in Harry Potter, I suggest you watch that. Because her headcanon about Neville is actually like mine as well, and I think that it's actually really good and I think should have been canon. But yeah, that has been my tier ranking for this series. Like and comment down below if you want to, and have a good day. Thanks, guys.